Welcome to the Wellness Revolution podcast, the radio show all about wellness in your mind, body, spirit, personal growth, sex, and relationships. Stay tuned for weekly interviews featuring guests that have achieved physical, mental, and spiritual health in their lives. If you'd like to have access to our entire back catalog, visit drveronica.com for instant access. And here is your host, Dr. Veronica.
I'm Dr. Veronica. This is Wellness for the Real World. I'm medical doctor, medical intuitive, and I like to keep your mind going with juicy topics from all realms of health and wellness. And so you notice that I rarely talk about cholesterol and thyroid and high blood pressure and cancer. But when I do talk about those, it's going to be something a little bit controversial so that it's not the same old. Oh, go take fish oil, take some coenzyme Q, coffee bean extract is the way to go. None of that here. Are you kidding me? But let's talk about really the juicy stuff that makes us all go and while we're all here. And so you understand that I always got to have a sex show on with good sexologists. Now, I think maybe I miss my calling sometime because if I could go back and be and I have other lifetimes coming up. We've done that show. What would I be if I could be anything that I wanted to be that I didn't get to be in this lifetime? Would I be a sexologist? Maybe, because I'm just so academic and heady about these things. But I really think that I'd probably be and I'm going to do this. I'm getting all my friends as I'm working out. My trainer's working on me and I'm running and I'm getting back in shape. I'm ready to do my nude calendar with all my middle-aged and older friends just so y'all can be pissed off. Because it's beautiful and sex is beautiful and you got to get it right. So let's talk more about sex. But this is from a little bit different angle. We're going to talk about cheating. And there's a difference in cheating, the way guys cheat and girls cheat and how we perceive it. And how about more of my history? I'd like to give my history because I'm out there, because when I decide that I'm going to run for president, I want you guys to not have anything in the closet that you can hold over my head. So here we go. And now Al, my producer over there, is looking at me out of the corner of my eye, wondering if he's going to have to edit me and not the guest. Maybe not. So I'm on my second time around in marriage and it's working out very well because we've got a groove going on, and that's a good piece that has it going on. And I'm not just talking about a bedroom groove. We just know how each other likes to roll in the rest of life, and we are allow it and accepting of it such that it works so we feel good with each other. When we have any kind of issue, we're able to talk about it and be straight with each other. Even when I'm having an issue and I say, listen, baby, I don't want to talk about this, but I just want to tell you how I'm feeling. He'll say, okay. And if we need to talk about it, we'll talk about it. But if not, he'll say, okay. And that works well. But before I did that, I was married before, and I decided it was time to go. I was being called by another life. And here I am in this other life, but I didn't know what it was when I was being called and why I was being called. But I lived that particular life for a reason. I got to the point where I could not stand it. I hated my medical practice, although it was big. And I love my patients. I love those people. If you were one of my patients that I took care of, I want you to know how much I love you. I did love you and I still love you, but no, I ain't coming back to that. No, get another doctor. I've met people who these many years later haven't gotten another doctor. I'm not coming back to that. No way, no how. Okay. But I jumped out of my medical practice. I owned it, and I just walked away one day and said, I ain't never coming back. But I didn't even tell anybody I wasn't coming back. I just walked away and said, I'm never doing this again. And at the same time, I walked away from the church. I was a member of First Baptist Church of Lincoln Garden, had been for years, taught Sunday school, had people who I thought were my friends there. Obviously, they weren't my friends because once I decided I was walking away, I can count on about 2 fingers of the people who've reached out to me in that time for whatever reason. I haven't reached back either. I've gotten past that. They're where they are, and that's fine, and it's wonderful. It's working for them. Wonderful. It wasn't working for me anymore. goodbye, church. And on the next pathway, I decided I was walking out of my marriage. So I could tell you all the good, the bad, the ugly about why I wanted to get a divorce, but it really wasn't about that. That's the story that I tell you on the surface that you can understand, but it was really about my soul wasn't where it needed to be. And so therefore I had to move and shift. And so one day I went to my husband at the time and said, I want to leave. I'm out of here. I don't want to be married anymore. And imagine a black man turning white, because that's what he looked like when I told him that. I caught him completely off guard. He wasn't expecting it. We had a reasonably good marriage. Most people would say we had a pretty good marriage. Now, people have their idiosyncrasies, but we were married, and I would admit that we had a good marriage. I wasn't, there wasn't abuse. There wasn't all these other horrible stories that people tell about being married. There were issues with things I didn't like and things he didn't like, but the real underlying reason was I was just out of there because my soul said, you need to move. And I had no idea where I needed to move to. So once I said that to him, I said, I'm going out and getting a boyfriend. Now keep in mind, I was still married, but I decided I'm going and getting a boyfriend. And thus I walked out and I got a boyfriend. And you realize that after you've been walking in a relatively fundamentalist Christian community, that all of a sudden I had the scarlet A on my chest. And that was reason for everybody to pile on top of me, beat me up, and throw me away and never talk to me again. Because that's what happens. You're saying, Dr. Veronica, why are you telling this story? I'm telling the story because I know that other people have been there, done that where I am. And when I was going through it, I felt like nobody else had been there, done that where I am. I went into a severe clinical depression where I went to see the psychologist twice a week, and I was happy that the sun came up, but I wasn't all that happy because I felt so horrible. I was clinically depressed. And in my clinical depression, in the strategy to feel better, some people go for drugs. Some people go for alcohol. Some people go for cigarettes. Some people go for food, and that's why they're 400 pounds, because they feel so bad. The only thing that gives them any relief is eating that Krispy Kreme and Dunkin' Donuts and Wawa extra large chocolate white mocha coffee 24/7. But for me, it was, I'm going to go out and get a boyfriend. And so therefore, I had the big A on my chest. Now, all those people that I went to church with who are gluttonous and obese and sick and doing all those other things, they're all fine from a moral standpoint, but not Dr. Veronica when she went out and she had a boyfriend. Interesting, isn't it? I'm so happy I did it, though, because I learned something. Because here I am. And my life is wonderful now because I got past that. I told you the story about how when I met my husband, my friend told me when I was coming to this party that all the guys there were married. And so I purposely wouldn't talk to any of the men at this party because been there, done that, dating a married man. And I wasn't doing that anymore. So I had all these life experiences. You understand you have these life experiences to evolve your soul. And I had a soul evolution, and I decided, been there, done that. I'm not dating any more married men. So I went to this party and I wouldn't talk to anybody, except this guy came outside me and said, why don't you try that food? I didn't even look at him because as far as I knew, that was somebody else's husband and I wasn't doing that again. Turned out he wasn't married either. And he was the other divorced person at this party. And now he's my husband. Beautiful story. That is my second act, my soulmate. That I knew him from at least 2500 BC, my soulmate, Abel. There are no bad guys in cheating. I bring to you Dr. Claudia Six. Interesting, a sexologist named Six.
That's right. It's perfect.
There are no bad guys in cheating. You say that. I wanted to tell my story because the truth heals. And so I plan to be well. I will close my eyes from here and move on when I'm 99, and I will do it being well. And by being well means I have to tell my truth. And that was part of my truth. And I've told it to all of Philadelphia area and anybody who gets this on demand way down the line. So Dr. Six, you say there are no bad guys in cheating. Why do you say that?
I do. It's a hard sell. People don't like it when I say that Your situation's a little different in that you were actually truthful with your husband and you said, I'm going to go be with somebody else. Most people do not. Most people go fool around on the side and are deceitful by omission. They don't tell. And the reason I say there's no bad guy in cheating is because infidelity is a reflection of the dynamic between two people in a relationship. And it's symptomatic of a problem in the primary relationship. And the mistress is not the cause of it. So for the sake of this conversation, let's assume a heterosexual model and the guy is cheating. That is not always how it happens. But the reason somebody cheats always makes perfect sense. I'm not advocating it. I'm not excusing it. But if you are the one who's been cheated on, it kind of behooves you to look at how it makes sense. I invite people who come see me after infidelity to be curious about their predicament from an empowered stance, not of a victim stance. There's no victims in my office.
There are no victims.
The person who cheated is out of integrity with themselves, and they've chosen to prioritize something else over their commitment. And that's information about them. It's not information about the person who's been cheated on. That's why I say there's no bad guys in cheating.
So when I'm, I like to use me as an example, but, I got into a situation where I felt miserable, and I understood that I felt miserable and it wasn't his fault that I felt miserable. I needed to do something. And people do what they have to do for whatever reason. Is there a better way to do it? You get in that situation, and there are people who, men more than women, who they want to keep their primary marriage, but they want to be with somebody else too. Talk about the psychology behind that.
There's lots of reasons why people are unfaithful, and a lot of people are unfaithful and do want to keep their primary relationship. It may be that they feel consistently pushed away or made wrong. And that doesn't make them want to be closer to their spouse, but they don't necessarily want to leave. They just want to go be received by somebody else. It may be that they don't feel appreciated or that they feel a lack of affection. It may be that their partner doesn't want to be sexual for whatever reason. Sometimes, women, after childbirth or around menopause, their libido drops. And they decide they're not interested. But that doesn't mean they get to make a unilateral decision about whether or not their partner gets to have sex. So that's, sometimes people don't listen to each other. They don't talk to each other. They play it safe and they kind of hide emotionally, and they don't really reveal themselves to their partner. They forget to enchant each other. They refuse to evolve emotionally. They refuse to say the things that are hard to say. Or sometimes it's an escape hatch. It's a backup plan in case the primary relationship doesn't work out, something to fall back on. Sometimes it's just a way to avoid that existential loneliness, especially when a woman has a child and the child kind of takes all her energy. The husband feels neglected, and that existential loneliness comes up. It can also be a distraction from not liking yourself, not really liking who you see in the mirror. So you go find somebody else who's going to like you and prop up your ego. It might also be because somebody wants variety and they don't know how to make it happen in their relationship. So they go find somebody who's more acrobatic. I mean, I can go on. Sometimes people want to try new things, but they're afraid that if they tell their partner's going to reject them or say, where did you learn that? Or, that's sick and perverted. And it's not necessarily sick and perverted. It's just a little variety. And then in the middle of it, they might say something like, are you done yet? Or, hurry up and get it over with. I mean, that's just heartbreaking.
Yes.
But, that's a situation that happens a lot. And sometimes it's easier to go find somebody new to do it with than keep settling for a diet of that. Sometimes people are bored. Sometimes people are complacent. A lot of people are complacent.
Okay, let's talk about monotonous monogamy, variety. I believe that people do want variety. And so you're in a relationship, you want your primary relationship, but you do want variety. What do you do about this?
You open your mouth. You talk about it. it's crazy that you can have your mouth on somebody's genitals and not be able to talk to them about it. Sexism is a very intimate thing, and it's a very personal thing. It's very revealing of who we are. But people they want to do it, but they don't want to talk about it. It's crazy. You want to do something different, you want to add some variety, you got to open your mouth and say, honey, you start with a positive. I really like, our lovemaking. I really like, what we've been doing. And I was thinking it might be fun if we tried something new. How would it be if we did this? And then you say what it's going to look like and what it's not going to look like. Because you don't want the other person to get anxious or go into, performance anxiety. It's like, oh, my God, I don't know if I can do that. And then you ask them, what they would need to make that work. And you find a win-win. You want to make it work for both people. But you got to open your mouth and talk about it.
You do. But before you talk about it, you might want to read Dr. Six's book, Erotic Integrity, How to Be True to Yourself Sexually. How to be true to yourself sexually. Erotic integrity. I like that term, erotic integrity. So, you say that cheating is not personal, yet it really feels so personal when your partner that you do everything for, because it seems that perhaps this is true, but I don't necessarily know this is true, that men are straying more than women. But you're the woman, you've been home, you take care of the kids, you lay out his clothes, you do the cooking, you even bring home the bacon. I mean, you do it all. And yet after all this, he strays and he goes and runs off with the secretary or, somebody else. How can you not take that personally?
It feels deeply, deeply personal, and it's very painful, but it is not personal. You got to remember, this is what I tell my clients all the time, is people are always giving you information about themselves. They're not giving you information about you. They're giving you information about themselves. So if somebody's fooling around on you, it's not because you're not skinny enough or curvy enough or rich enough or orgasmic enough or acrobatic enough or whatever it is enough. You are enough. They're straying because they are out of integrity with themselves, and they make a choice to prioritize something else, short-term gratification, ease, over their commitment to the primary relationship and whatever agreements you've made. And that is information about them. It's not information about you. Just like if somebody says you're too sensitive. You're too sensitive for what? You're too sensitive for them. You're just fine. So people always give you information about themselves. And when somebody's fooling around, it's information about them. It's not about you. It doesn't mean you're not desirable, that you're not attractive, that you're not a good partner. It's information about them. It is not personal, even though it hurts really badly. And it's hard to remember that in the moment.
And so here comes the medical moment, because one quality that I see in a lot of women as they get older, they just get old and mean and don't feel like doing it. And they just think, okay, well, we're just past that point. No, that's not the way it is. You got to do something about that. Now, yes, hormones change and all that type of stuff, but do something. Now, I'm not saying you have to go to the doctor and get hormone replacement therapy. I have for people holistic therapies that work so well. It's amazing. They work better than what you get a prescription written for. Amazingly so, that will rejuvenate your body and make you feel like having sex again. And it's scary. It's scary that people don't know that there's out there. But I think one of the problems with women is, they just feel like, oh, well, like you said, I just don't feel like it anymore. And he's married to me. And so therefore he should be faithful and he should be winding down his sex life anyway, because this is how I feel about it. This is what you should do when you're a certain age. And he doesn't necessarily feel that way about it. And so he goes out and he gets a side piece and all of a sudden he's happy. Let me tell you, I know a lot of women who are side pieces. I do. You start talking about this now and you just realize, a lot of people are in relationships that they stay in because it's easier to stay married. It's hard to split up your assets. You don't want to rock the boat. You want to stay in your same social circle. And so, and you don't want, I don't like you anymore, really, but it's easier for me because if we get a divorce, you're going to be horrible. And so therefore, I'm just going to stay married and I'm going to go out and get a side piece. I'm going to go get a girlfriend. Do you see this a lot, Dr. Six?
I do. I see this all the time, both from the women's perspective and from the men's perspective. And I do have something to offer on that in terms of desire. There's all these conversations about desire, which, in my opinion, confuse desire and arousal. So I tell people desire is the willingness to get started. It's the willingness to engage your partner sexually. And too often, people look to their crotch, especially older women. They're looking for desire in their crotch, and it's like, you know what? It's not happening. I'm done. But that's very short-sighted. Desire, you can come to desire from three different places. You can come to it from your crotch, the throbbing loins, that horny feeling. Guys have testosterone, so they inherently have more of that kind of desire. It's not good or bad. It's just different. It's hormones. You can also come to it from a little higher up. You can come to it from your heart. You know, I really love this person. I want to make them feel good. I want to smell them and wrap my legs around them and, you know, experience pleasure with them. Or you can come to it from your head. Like, well, you know, it's been 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, whatever, and it would be a good idea for us to get it on. And it doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter if you're 80% in your head and 20% in your heart. Well, it's a good idea. I kind of like the guy. All right, you know, let's give this a go. And it doesn't matter if one person's in their crotch and the other person starts from their heart or their head. That is just getting started. That's desire. And people come to sex therapy thinking they're broken because they're not experiencing desire in their crotch. And you know, past a certain age, it's not happening so much in your crotch. Some people with hormone replacement therapy can get back to that. But still, don't just look to it there. Look a little higher in your heart and your head. And arousal is what happens once you get going. That's the heavy breathing, the lubricating, the contorting. That's arousal. Desire is the willingness to move towards your partner and engage them sexually. So that a lot of more people have desire than they think.
The caregiver. There are a lot of people who, as they move on in life or at a particular time, end up, men or women, being a caregiver with somebody on the other side who they are married to, who's critically ill, and they're doing their best, yet they would like to have a relationship, and because of an illness, the person on the other side that they are married to is unable to do that. What do you tell people like that?
You know, I actually have a chapter like that in my book, that specific case. The story that I tell in the book was of a gentleman whose wife was ailing and was no longer, you know, coherent and able to participate in the relationship. And he was still a vibrant sexual being, and I helped him place an ad, and he met a number of women, and he found somebody with whom to be lovers, who didn't want to take the place of his wife, who wasn't looking to steal him away, and they had a very enjoyable, you know, companionable sexual relationship, and he was still loyal to his wife. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's part of erotic integrity and being true to yourself and being honest with yourself.
And one other interesting thing you said, he was still being loyal to his wife. And I mean, my ears perked up to that because many people would say that's not loyalty. He cheated on his wife. What do you say to that?
If his wife was in such a state that she was no longer able to, you know, if her mental abilities were decreasing such that she couldn't really participate in the relationship, and maybe, I think in this case, she was also, you know, in a retirement home and he went and visited her every day. But the sensual, sexual, you know, affectionate part of his life and part of their relationship wasn't there anymore. So he was loyal, he took care of her, he went and visited her, he spent time with her, he did everything to make sure that she had optimal well-being. But he still had, you know, sensual and sexual needs. He was still a vibrant sexual being. And this was a gentleman in his 70s. And, there's no reason why you can't still be true to yourself, be in erotic integrity with yourself, and still be loyal to your partner. There's gray area. It's not black and white.
So what of these people where and it's more often the wife than the husband that becomes this way. The wife is just uninterested in the erotic side of their relationship, but she wants everything else. Yet the husband goes off and he has a mistress that doesn't want to steal him away, doesn't want to do anything, and just becomes a companion. Do you call that okay?
Well, that depends. So the case I just described was an older gentleman, but in the case of, say, a menopausal woman who's not interested in sex anymore and who says, you know what, I don't want to have sex, I don't care what you do, go find somebody else, I don't want to know about it, I don't want to hear about it, and the guy takes her at her word and has a lover, I don't think he's out of integrity because they have an agreement. She said, go do this with somebody else. I don't want to know about it. I mean, ideally, they would have a conversation, and he would say something like, honey, I love you. I want to stay married to you. I still want to be sexual. My first choice is to be sexual with you. That is really my preference. I love you. I find you attractive. I would love for us to be lovers. If that is definitely not on the table for you and you are definitely not available for that, I want you to know that I'm going to take you at your word and I am going to take a lover.
Huh. Okay,
ideally,
women.
That's what would happen, but it's not always the conversation that takes place.
It's hardly ever the conversation that takes place because there are a lot of people out there that hold their partners hostage. You better do it this way or else, with the threat of losing everything. So you're supposed to be miserable with me forever. Don't you dare do anything. No sex, no nothing. Do as I say and stay in misery. But you better not go off and get a hot thing. So, Dr. Six, thank you for being on Wellness for the Real World.
Thank you, Dr. Veronica.
Dr6.com. You want to go get her book, Erotic Integrity. Thank you for being on Wellness for the Real World. I'm Dr. Veronica, medical doctor, medical intuitive.
Thank you for listening to the Wellness Revolution podcast. If you want to hear more on how to bring wellness into your life, visit drveronica.com. See you all next week. Take care.